New this morning, members of a local SWAT team assigned to protect Donald Trump the day of the assassination attempt now say the Secret Service never met with them face to face. They spoke to ABC News about the lack of action after a local sniper texted about someone suspicious.
We had a text group between the local snipers that were on scene. I had sent those pictures out to that group and advised them of what I noticed and what I'd seen.
What do you think is transpiring once you send in what you've sent in?
I assumed that there would be somebody coming out to, speak with this individual or, find out what's going on.
My friend Aaron Katersky there. Text messages also reveal that the issue of the gunman was raised nearly 90 minutes before shots were fired at the former president. CNN's Zach Cohen here with the latest this morning. Zach, what are you learning?
Yeah, John, members of the SWAT team describing both a failure in planning and a failure in communication. And they told ABC News that it started with this briefing, that they were supposed to have a face-to-face briefing with U.S. Secret Service snipers before the rally took place. But that never happened. Take a listen to what they told ABC News this morning.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
So members of the SWAT team say they had no direct communication with the Secret Service at all on Saturday, which is amazing until after the shooting happened. That includes warnings that they picked up and they were talking about amongst themselves about this suspicious individual who would turn out to be the would-be assassin, that were raised hours in a group text with just the local snipers in it about 90 minutes before the rally took place. I want to read some of these text messages. They were obtained by Chuck Grassley, the Republican senator from Iowa, who is investigating the shooting at Trump's rally. One of them in particular at 4:26 p.m. Again, this is over an hour and a half before the rally started. One of the local snipers texts, "Kid learning around building we are in," a little typo there. "I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage. FYI, if you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him." So this local sniper saw the would-be shooter an hour and a half before the rally started, texted the concerns about the shooter an hour and a half before the rally started, and it's unclear if that warning ever made it to the Secret Service.
All right, good reporting this morning, Zach. Zach Cohen, thanks so much for being with us.
We're just getting some brand new details from the FBI this morning surrounding the investigation into the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. The former president has agreed to meet with the Bureau for a victim interview. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez joins us now. Evan, this would be routine in any investigation, but it's also pretty significant and extraordinary given it's Donald Trump.
Right, because it is the former president. Obviously, this was something that was being closely watched, and the FBI requested the interview. The former president has now agreed to it. It's a voluntary thing, and it is the standard part of an investigation like this, right? He is considered to be a victim of a crime, and so therefore they want to talk to him about what he experienced that day. Is there anything that they're missing about anything that he saw or witnessed before this shooting took place? So those are parts of the standard process. What is interesting too is a lot of new details that we got from this call with the senior officials at the FBI who are overseeing this investigation, including the fact that they said that, again, no motive so far has been uncovered as part of this investigation. They've also found no co-conspirators, any accomplices, but they spent a lot of time trying to understand him, and they think, again, he was a loner. He was essentially, his social circle was his family, and that he spent a significant amount of time preparing for this attack. He bought gun components, and he also bought chemicals to make his improvised devices. He bought those online using aliases, using encrypted emails. Those are the things that the FBI has been spending so much time trying to get into. We also know that he spent a lot of time that day visiting the site, doing essentially surveillance ahead of when the former president finally gets on stage. And one of the things that the FBI is still trying to, the behavioral analysis people are trying to understand is, again, how does this fit with his mental state? Something we know, he researched depression and so on. The question is, was he ever treated for that? They've found no indication of that yet right now.
And we want to note, so as the FBI investigation continues, they're trying to piece this together. We are set to see some more key Senate testimony on the investigation this week. This is the fourth, I believe, major hearing on the assassination attempt. What are we expecting?
Well, we expect that they're going to be pressed to provide as much as they can on the events that day and what went wrong. Of course, the FBI's part of this is really just a shooter, but we also expect that the Secret Service will be providing testimony and hopefully a little bit more prepared than the director was last week before she resigned. So we expect that they're going to be pressed on how many of these lapses happened. From what we can tell, there's overlapping lapses that happened here, Pamela, and it's clear that just by matter of luck and millimeters, the former president wasn't more seriously injured or perhaps even killed that day.
Right. I mean, the more we're learning, the more we're seeing the communication breakdowns and so forth.
For 90 minutes, they were looking for him, and it just doesn't seem like they were able to. Well, we know that they were never able to find him, but just the sort of effort on the ground before he takes the stage is kind of remarkable to watch.
And we're now hearing ABC interviewed the SWAT team that said that they were supposed to be connected with the Secret Service on that day. That never happened, and comms were off. I mean, we're learning so much more. Evan Perez, thanks for bringing us the latest on the investigation from the FBI. I want to go straight to Josh Campbell for more on this. Just on the Donald Trump aspect, I mean, can we just take a step back on this, that he is going to be interviewed by the FBI as a victim when simultaneously he has been under investigation by the FBI on several different avenues, and he has been attacking the FBI for years and Director Wray, and it's just kind of a remarkable moment in that way, but also, as Evan pointed out, it would be expected, right?
It is, and this is what they call a standard witness interview. I actually don't think that there's much that the former president is going to provide the FBI investigatively. I mean, he was obviously a central victim in this mass shooting, but everything that we saw, there's so much video of it. They've been collecting evidence, talking with witnesses. Again, we've seen that moment over and over now where he's speaking and all of a sudden gunfire erupts. So again, I doubt he saw something himself that would be advantageous to the investigation. But to your point, I think the news would be if he didn't want to be interviewed by the FBI. But officials making clear on that call just a short time ago that this is standard. This is something that they would try to do in every single case. That call that we just got, the update from the Bureau, is really interesting, not only because of, as you mentioned, with the former president now being interviewed, but I think, we're finally getting some insight into the mind of the shooter from the behavioral professionals at the FBI, the so-called profilers that I'm sure everyone is familiar with. As Evan was just mentioning there, they determined that this person is what they believe to be highly intelligent. They described him in their own words as a loner. Again, his social circle limited to just his immediate family. And interestingly, they also said that, although he was a so-called gamer, he didn't engage in the type of, friendly, witty banter conversations that you often see within the gaming community. So someone who was certainly reclusive. They did mention that there's no evidence that he was ever treated for any type of mental health issues. But again, interesting that we're getting that kind of mindset from the people who know this best.
I want to follow up with you. I was just talking to Evan about what the SWAT team told ABC News, that there was supposed to be a briefing by Secret Service once they got there on the ground, and there wasn't comms ever between the SWAT team and the Secret Service, and that was a big, security lapse. Obviously, I'd like your perspective on that as a former FBI agent. How big of a deal is that?
Well, there's this phrasing in both law enforcement and the military that complacency kills. And I think that is what it's going to turn out here, as just the more and more that we're learning about the run up to that. And it's worth pointing out that within the Secret Service, there are two main components. There is the detail that's actually protecting the former president in real time, but there's also a separate team, the so-called advanced team. They're the ones who do the site surveys. They're the ones who look for potential threats. And it's that team that's on the former president's detail that's relying on their colleagues to ensure that once the protectee is brought into a particular area, that the place is safe and it is secure. But, we're seeing, according to, as you mentioned, comments from some of the local law enforcement officers there, that the standard types of briefings that you would expect didn't happen. Have a listen to them speaking to ABC's Good Morning America.
He was looking up and down the building and just wandering around, and it just seemed out of place. We had a text group between the local snipers that were on scene. I had sent those pictures out to that group and advised them of what I noticed and what I'd seen I assumed that there would be somebody coming out to, speak with this individual or, find out what's going on.
You know, so interesting, Pam, that a staple in law enforcement on any given day, much less a crisis situation, is having the ability to communicate. Here, it appears that there was a text chain that some of the officers were on, but it didn't appear that they were even on the same channel. You know, the Secret Service, their radios are encrypted. A lot of times local law enforcement can't tap into that. And so you would expect that there would be at least some type of central command post, a dispatcher, if you will, who's getting information, relaying information back and forth. It appears that that wasn't happening in real time. That's what's so difficult to grasp about all this is that you had people there, based on some of the witness footage that we've seen, saying there's someone on the gun, there's a shooter on the gun. You have law enforcement, they're scrambling to try to figure out who this person was. But even in that moment, even here in the year 2024, these officers couldn't talk to each other via radio, Pam.